How do you solve a crime scene bigger than a city when the best clue is smaller than your fingernail? That is the question at the heart of the bombing of Pan Am 103. Six-part series dramatizes a real investigation, so the story begins with real loss. On December 21, 1988, passengers board a delayed flight from London to New York. They carry Christmas gifts, suitcases, plans, and people waiting across the ocean. Scotland police officer Ed McCusker finishes dinner and returns to work. Evening looks ordinary, but it is not. Flight 103 climbs into the night while the town of Lockerbie settles down below. Then a deep rumble shakes windows, roofs, and the quiet streets. Burning debris falls from the sky as homes and roads erupt into chaos. Local officers, firefighters, neighbors, and farmers run toward the disaster. They do not yet know that every person aboard the plane has died. 11 people on the ground are also killed. The total is 270 lives. The series keeps returning to one painful truth: every number was a person. Ed reaches streets filled with flames, luggage, broken buildings, and frightened residents. A young man named Steven searches for the family home that has disappeared. Ed cannot give him answers but promises the police will find them. That promise becomes the engine of the whole series. Detective Chief John Orr takes control of an operation no town could prepare for. The wreckage is scattered over hundreds of square miles. Thousands of people begin searching fields, farms, roads, forests, and rooftops. Every object must be marked, bagged, numbered, logged, and connected to a map. A mitt may matter, a wire may matter, and a bent scrap may change everything. The investigators create a giant evidence database called HOLME. He knows the system, so he helps turn a mountain of objects into searchable clues. Meanwhile, families arrive hoping for news that cannot come. American FBI agents also fly to Scotland because many victims were from the United States. Dick Marquis leads the American side while explosives expert Tom Thurman studies the wreckage. The Scots own the case and the Americans must work in support. Sounds simple until two proud teams bring two methods, two governments, and roughly 9 million opinions. Still, the evidence forces them together. The flight recorders contain no warning and no desperate message from the pilots. The crew never saw the disaster coming. Chemical traces appear on damaged metal. Thurman concludes that a powerful bomb destroyed the aircraft. Now the search changes from rescue to murder investigation. First suspect is called Jafar, a young passenger who joined the trip in Frankfurt. His missing luggage and rumors around him make investigators suspicious. The press reaches his father before the evidence reaches the truth. Then Ed and Dick search recovered bags piece by piece. They find Jafar's belongings intact and nowhere near the center of the blast. He was a victim, not the bomber. Dick apologizes, but Jafar's father knows the accusation will never fully disprove. Series uses that mistake as a warning. A theory can run faster than a fact. The real breakthrough begins with damaged metal from the luggage container. Experts clean a tiny electronic shard and enlarge it under a microscope. Marks on the fragment point to Toshiba radio circuit board. A bomb may have been hidden inside an ordinary radio cassette player. That discovery leads the team to West Germany in Operation Autumn Leaves. German police had recently uncovered radio bombs made by Marwan Kresat. His devices were linked to the PFLPGC, a Palestinian militant group. Investigators wonder whether Iran sponsored revenge for an earlier air disaster. For a while, the pieces seem to fit. They fit almost too well. Dick questions Kresat and Jordan about the radios he built. Kresat admits making devices but denies building the Lockerbie bomb. Some radios remain unaccounted for, and intelligence agencies hold information back. Series turns the investigation into a room full of locked filing cabinets. Everyone has a key, but nobody wants to share the key ring. The Scottish team keeps following physical evidence instead of one attractive theory. They reconstruct a huge section of the plane inside a hangar. Each recovered panel returns to its original position like a terrible metal puzzle. Damage shows the blast began inside a luggage container near the front. Then another trail appears in the clothing packed around the device. Labels and fibers point investigators toward a small shop on Malta. The shopkeeper Tony Gosse remembers selling several unusual clothes to a stranger. His memory is important, but memory is not a video recording. Dates, weather, appearance, and later identification all become contested. Series makes that uncertainty part of the story rather than hiding it. Investigators also study airport baggage records from Malta, Frankfurt, and London. They believe an unaccompanied suitcase may have traveled through the system. In 1988, checks that sound obvious today were often weak or ignored. A bag could move while its owner did not. That security gap becomes central to the prosecution's theory. Episode 4 shows public anger growing while the case moves slow. Reporter even carries a fake device through weak airport security to prove the danger. The stunt is reckless, but its message is clear. The system had holes large enough for disaster. Meanwhile, families fight for information, respect, and safer air travel. Investigators fight something less dramatic but nearly as powerful: time. Witnesses forget, records vanish, governments change, and leads cool. Then the microscopic evidence delivers another turn. Green circuit board fragment does not match the radio itself. Experts believe it came from the timer that triggered the bomb. CIA compares photographs and finds a similar timer seized in Togo. The unusual circuitry points to a Swiss electronics company called MEBO. MEBO owner Edwin Bollier says his company made MSD-13 timers for Libya. He had approached the United States earlier, but officials dismissed him as unreliable. Now the ignored man is standing directly on the evidence trail. Nobody enjoys opening an old file labeled "Perhaps we should have listened." Timer link shifts attention away from the first Palestinian theory and toward Libya. The case has crossed another international border. Bollier identifies Abdelbasset al-Megrahi as a Libyan intelligence officer he knew. Tony Gosse sees a photograph and says Megrahi resembles the clothing buyer. Travel records suggest Megrahi was not on Malta on the bombing day under his own name. Investigators search for other identities and possible partners. They uncover the name Ahmed Khalifa Abdusam. Passport later connects that identity to Megrahi. They also examine Lamin Khalifa F. Hima, a former station manager at Malta's airport. His diary contains a note about obtaining baggage tags. Another name enters the picture: Abu Ajila Masad, an alleged bomb. Records place Masad and the Abdusamid identity on Malta around the critical time. Hotel bill shows an early morning telephone call on December 21. The number links back toward F. Hima. Prosecution theory is now a chain. Masad allegedly prepared the device, Megrahi helped organize it, and airport access moved the suitcase. The suitcase then traveled from Malta to Frankfurt, London, and finally Flight 103. Every link must survive a courtroom, not just an investigation board. The teams also confront intelligence secrets and a CIA source named Jayaka. Scottish officers want everything the source knows. American agencies fear exposing their asset and methods. Partnership that looks strong begins to crack under classified information. That detail matters because hidden evidence can protect security while weakening public trust. 1991, the investigators believe they have enough to accuse 2 Libyan men. The United States and Scotland indict Megrahi and Fhim. Libya refuses to hand them over. Case enters a long frozen period of sanctions, negotiation, and waiting. For families, waiting is not empty time. It is birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries arriving without the people they lost. The series shows investigators moving on to new jobs while the promise remains unfinished. NAM collapses financially, and civil cases cannot answer who planted the bomb. Years pass before a strange legal solution finally appears. The suspects will face Scottish law inside a specially created court in the Netherlands. Camp Zeist becomes a small piece of Scotland surrounded by another country. In 1999, Megrahi and Fhim are handed over and placed in custody. The trial begins in 2000 before 3 judges instead of a jury. Prosecutors must prove the suitcase route, the timer link, the clothing sale, and the identities. They all need witnesses who are frightened, uncertain, or difficult to trust. Tony Goss must explain why Megrahi is the man he remembers from years earlier. Ed helps build protection so witnesses can testify safely. Catherine Turman works to help victims' families attend or watch the trial remotely. Series argues that families should not be treated like background furniture in their own tragedy. Side court, the defense attacks weak memories, missing records, and disputed intelligence. It argues that the bomb could have entered the baggage system somewhere else. It also challenges Bollier and Jayaka as unreliable witnesses. The investigators finally hear their beautiful evidence chain rattling under pressure. That is what trials are designed to do. In January 2001, the judges deliver 2 different verdicts. Fhim is found not guilty and leaves for Libya. Megrahi is found guilty of murder and receives a life sentence. The investigators have a conviction, but the families do not receive a clean ending. One verdict cannot explain every person, motive, warning, and hidden document. Series then shows belongings returned to Jaffar's father after 12 painful years. He reminds police that suspicion became its own punishment. At Lockerbie, families and investigators gather beside the memorial. Her work changes aviation security and the way victims receive official support. Megrahi loses an appeal, then leaves prison in 2009 because he has terminal cancer. He dies in Libya in 2012 while arguments over the conviction continue. The drama does not pretend every doubt disappears. In 2020, American prosecutors charge Abu Ajila Masad over the alleged construction of the bomb. 2022, the United States takes him into custody to face the case. That means the investigation is still moving more than 3 decades after the attack. Final lesson is not that one tiny fragment solved everything by magic. Thousands of people built meaning from fields of debris, one careful connection at a time. Series presents their case, their mistakes, their conflicts, and their determination. It also leaves room for the questions that one conviction could not settle. A clue smaller than a fingernail helped cross countries, agencies, and decades, but the truth remained larger than any single courtroom.